After we get done with this podcast, I'm going to make a second cup of coffee.
I can't do another cup,
it too
especially.
Late?
Yeah, the half-life of caffeine, it stays in your system a while and then keep us up a little bit. But for me, if I do one right now, I mean, we know I'm a little chatty, but you want to talk about chatty.
Chatty
night.
Kathy over there.
Nuts with caffeine. It is a good drug for my brain. Really good. That and nicotine. Yep. Nicotine. Go look it up, people. Don't judge.
I'm judging.
You are?
I'm judging.
You're judging my breath after I have a cigar.
No.
I don't do cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried I've tried the pouches, but man, whoo. Remember that? Isla Mujeres?
Oh, yeah. That was not a good outcome.
That was, I think it was the most, this potent patch that you can buy.
Goodness gracious.
Anyway, so a lot of times we'll start talking. I think when we were talking to Blake and Adrena a couple of weeks ago, we started talking before the podcast, and I went, wait, stop, save it, just hit record. So it's not like we prepare, but like you literally have no idea.
I have no idea what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and you know what?
I'm ready.
Here's what we're going to talk about. So I went on a walk. And on my walk, I was listening to the latest talk tracks on the Telepathy Tapes podcast. And I'm a fan.
Yes.
Our listeners know I'm a fan of the Telepathy Tapes and Kai Dixon.
Yes. If y'all have not started it, do it. It's so good. I have not listened to the talk tracks yet.
Yeah, it's just some supplemental stuff while they get ready for season 2. And they're working on the documentary. So, look. If people go like, well, what are the telepathy tapes? It's about the non-speakers, autistic kids who are non-speakers, and some people call them spellers. A lot of them have learned to communicate through spelling. And now you can say it's still controversial, but I believe that these telepathy tapes, this podcast and the Telepathy Tapes documentary that she's making, that you can see some of the footage on telepathytapes.com, you can see, what I think is conclusive evidence that these non-speakers are communicating telepathically and usually with their either primary caregivers or their moms. Sometimes their dads too, but yeah, they can read our minds. And so anyway, it's a beautiful podcast. I love hearing about that. For me, it's not a question of does this happen? It's how and what are the implications for faith and spirituality and for what's next, the afterlife and beyond, right? So anyway, it's interesting and I love it. This talk track, they were talking about love and specifically like how I think, first of all, it was like a lot of people around the room, and I'm not going to go through who all was there, but because I don't even remember, but kind of defining love, what love is. And so that's cool to talk about. But one of the women was the CEO, and I don't know if she founded it, but she was the CEO of Bumble, right? The dating app Bumble. And then she was not that for a while. And then how she says the universe basically called her back into that and why. And the Telepathy Tapes was part of it. And it's a cool story. But some of the things she said. And so, overall, I loved the talk tracks. I loved the podcast. And it was just great stuff. But there were certain things that she said, her specifically, and then that, a lot of them were talking about that I thought, it'd be good to talk about this. So first, it's funny. It's not a disclaimer. This is actually part of the explanation and part of what I wanted the discussion. First of all, we are not experts on anything. We're good night. We're doing podcasts once a week. And so I'm bound to say something stupid on at least once a week. Right. And it's not some conclusive thing that we're going to come down and this is what we think. And I'm not short on words and telling you what I think, but what about a year from now? Do I think something differently because my information that I'm getting and is evolving and is changing and hopefully we're updating what we know and what we think. And a lot of times people don't do that. They don't allow kind of the facts to confuse their feelings. But we want to update what we think about things. And, again, I just want a discussion. I want to be able to talk about things. And so if anybody hears something and goes, wait, what? And takes issue, it's not even about a debate. I mean, I'd love you to shoot, if you feel that strongly about anything we say, love to have you on the podcast. And we can just discuss it. And I may say, oh yeah, well, that's not what I meant. Or, wow, did I say that? So, I mean, again, how many ways can I say the name Smartless was already taken for a podcast, so we can't use that. So maybe Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, that's good. Who am I? Which one am I?
So we're not LPCs. We're not LMFTs. We're not coming at this from any kind of, clinical or even medical or psychological, psychiatric. We're two people who have been married for almost 36 years. We've spoken to over 3,000 couples and coached them and counseled them. And we've just learned a lot about, staying married and about how we love one another. But even so, as I say that, we're all different. And so even giving marriage advice, today I was just struck as I was hearing them talk, and I was just thinking about what we do. We've said many times how different we are. And I'm, on the Enneagram, I'm an 8 and you're a 2. So, and my love language, yours acts of service, mine's physical touch and words of affirmation. So we're all different. So the things that we make work in our marriage, it's going to be different for the Enneagram 5 who's married to a 7, and the 2 9s that got married, and their love languages are different. And that's why I always say you do not have to become an expert on women. Become an expert on your wife. Yeah. And wives, become an expert on your husband, not on men. So there's too many things that are just over generalized. And so knowing that, we do want to come up with some things that we think are just baseline and foundational and fundamental to every relationship and every good relationship, and what we've seen that is common and universally applied in all healthy marriages, right? But again, it's it's just such a moving target. Yeah. And so, having said all that, one of the things that the I think now reinstated or about to be CEO of Bumble said was she talked about how her mission in starting that site was helping people find love. And right there, my brain just went off on the find love. And so it sounds good. And by the way, I love all the stuff that she stands for and what she wants, and so first of all, another disclaimer, you and I have never been on a dating site, never had an account, never did, thank the Lord we found each other before online dating was even a thing. And so this is not a statement about online dating at all. Yeah. She just talked about how she wants to help people find love. And one of the common things that was discussed then for the rest of the time, you heard people talk a lot about self-love and how if you haven't learned self-love and learn to love yourself, then you can never learn to love someone else. And you won't be able to, quote, find love because you haven't found yourself. And so while we do want to encourage self-love and people learning to love themselves, because a lot of times they were taught to love others first and maybe put themselves last, or maybe never learn to love themselves. Or they don't think they're lovable because of their childhood, right? And so there's that. But as I listened, first, let's talk about the word find love. What I think my brain started doing when I was hearing that was this finding love is really finding someone that makes you feel good about yourself, finding someone that agrees with you, finding someone maybe that likes the same things that you do, so you have things in common. So now a friendship can bud, which I think a foundation of every good relationship is friendship. But sometimes it's finding those things that are compatible. And if you find love and you're giddy and it's awesome, and that we talked before, it's the novelty, it's the new. Well, what happens when you all of a sudden discover and find out that that person doesn't think like you or agree with you on some other things? So talk about and by the way, I don't want this to be a one-way monologue, but I'm just cluing you into. So talk about what you think about when you hear someone say that we want to help you find love. What are the first things that pop into your head that could be problematic with that statement?
Well, I think when you just think of helping you find love, there can be lots of people, which we've heard that from some people, when you talk about online dating, that, when you used to just meet people just organically, you weren't like trying so hard. You weren't like, it almost sounds like a desperate attempt. Like I've got to find, I've lost something that I've got to find. And so number one, you're like on this, crazy mission to find something. And that just sounds like you're really trying to force something to happen. And I'm not saying that, I'm just being curious about what you ask. So it sounds like it could be a desperate measure, like I've got to find somebody, instead of just going, you know what, I'm organically going to go about my life and see what happens. I'm going to show up at dinner somewhere. I'm going to go, have a drink somewhere. I'm going to go to a party with a friend, or I'm going to go to wherever with a concert with friends. And wow, I met somebody, or someone said, hey, I want you to meet this friend of mine. I think y'all could, it just seemed like it used to happen so much more organically.
Right.
And now it seems like, number one, I got to find somebody. And so you're just swapping. And, you swipe and you find somebody, you're like, ooh, this seems like a good match. But then your brain is always thinking, but wait a second, what if there's something better? Almost like whenever I'm looking at Amazon, I'm, like right now looking at ring lights just a minute ago, I'm looking, okay, this says Amazon's choice. This says best, whatever, best choice or whatever. And then you're looking at reviews but I don't want to pull the trigger, because what if there's something better? And so it's hard for me to land on. So when you're on this kind of like desperate search for finding love or finding someone, what if there's someone better? And if you find somebody, you could lose somebody. I mean, you can, just as soon as you found somebody, it can be kind of disposed of.
Well, we heard from what's his name, Brenton Evans, talking about if you do get into the online dating thing, how that was a huge problem. Is the continual I've got to upgrade. There's FOMO. There's got to be someone better out there, or there's probably always going to be. And so I don't want to commit. I don't want to get locked down. But one of the big points that they did make, James, is, you talked about that kind of desperate, if you feel desperate. Some people may not at all, but that, to find someone, they talked about, if you think you have to find someone to complete you. She actually she goes, no, that person doesn't complete you. You need to be completely whole in yourself so that you can go find someone. Well, what about that then? If you look at Scripture, God said it's not good for a man to be alone. And what about the oneness in marriage, where, and it's not you complete me, the Jerry Maguire thing. It's but the idea that we actually may be more complete as a whole when we enter into this intimate union with another person, where it says the two become one. Now, as I say that, obviously people can say, well, I don't believe in the Bible. I don't believe that marriage is even a God-honored or a God-instituted or God-honoring institution, or I don't believe in God. I don't believe that it's even possible to be in a monogamous marriage. That was something made up by the men, and women were property, or it's against evolutionary biology to just want to be with one person for life. So yes, you could discard and reject all the ideas. And you know what? I could probably listen to that and debate both sides of that, even though I strongly believe in marriage. But so I guess, again, another issue is there's a lot of people out there who just think this is foolish. Like, why in the world would you do that? But the ones who do believe in it and want to do it, I think my concern as I started listening today was this idea that when you have to, first of all, that you don't find love. You have to make love. You have to choose love. You choose to love. So when that person that you found that felt so easy to love, when all of a sudden they're just not easy to love because you're different and because life is happening and all that, how difficult it truly is to stay, quote, in love and to stay in a marriage and choose to love. I mean, we've highlighted that over and over, and we always say, go back and listen to part 1 and 2 of our initial, marriage series on this roadcast, and you'll hear. But when you really dig into that, I mean, it's tough. It seems sometimes like, is this a joke, God? Is this and is it even possible? I mean, that's what people want to know. Is it possible to truly be in something where you're in it for life and you can stay romantically, passionate, and the sex and the romance can be, and that you're not bickering all the time and you actually appreciate that person for who they are? Is it possible? And I just want to say yes, but it goes against some of these things if you take it too far. So while I get finding love, and I want to be really clear here. I get the self-love thing. But the problem, if you take it too far, that I love myself and I'm going to put myself first and I'm going to set my boundaries and all of that stuff that sounds so good. I mean, literally, I get it. But then what happens when you're in a relationship and you feel like the first time that this other person is pointing something out or not accepting something in you? It's like, well, I accept myself and I love myself, so you're out. You're done. I'm done with you. And so while, again, I want to be very, very careful here, I get if someone's violating you, abusing you, not listening and loving and respecting your boundaries. But so if I am self-loving and part of me is I've been eating this food that gives me inflammation. And somebody says, so first, I love me and my inflammation. And it's causing some harm in me, but I've learned to love myself. And I'm going to respect and I want you to respect my inflammation, right? So first of all, if somebody came like you, my spouse, and said, hey, Brian, I've heard that here's what I think. Every single time you eat this food, your inflammation flares up. I think you should probably cut that food out. And you know what? If you get in some cold water every day, maybe that would help with your inflammation. Just 2 ideas, right? Well, what if I just say, no, I love myself and I'm okay with my inflammation and I want you to be okay with it. So, and I know this may seem nuanced, but and it may sound ridiculous, but so first of all, if I love myself, maybe I actually do want to see, is there something that's off? Is there some symptom in my life that points to, maybe it's a childhood trauma. Maybe it's something where I was wounded and I haven't healed that wound. And the partner can point out with a mirror, not a magnifying glass, but a mirror that they help me hold up. And I look and go, gosh, she's right. I want to get rid of that inflammation. I do love myself. I love myself enough to actually treat that inflammation so that I can show up and be more healthy in our relationship. So in just think too. So if you're the one coming at me, no, I don't. I reject you, and I reject that statement because you're now talking about my food and my polar plunge that I don't want to do. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I'm thinking about everything that you're saying. It does make perfect sense. There is a fine line between loving and caring for yourself and, having healthy boundaries and having this attitude of snapping your finger and saying, I don't need, anyone or anything. And, you kind of have this kind of this defensiveness up. And so the first time something, rubs you the wrong way, you cut bait and run. Like that's not love. If someone just is this, what's the word? Procured, perfect person to be linked up with, and they're not going to be perfect. So that's the beautiful nuances about a relationship. It's not going to be perfect. And so what are you going to do? That's not real, that's not reality. To be hooked up with somebody that's just going to be perfect. You're not going to be either. And so you're just going to be left, or you're going to be the leaver, and it'll just be a perpetual thing.
I think if we become the individual and me, I'm the sovereign, I'm the one that I'm going to love above all else. And I get it. Maybe it's an overcompensation from being abused. Okay. But again, if we're not careful, what we do is we put this up over what could be refining, the refining process of being with someone else who can kind of see some blind spots and who can kind of say, hey, this is, you are in this relationship with me, and that part of you that you're loving and you're just going to love, faults and all, and being curious about how you react in situations and giving yourself grace. I'm a fan of all of that, but allow that person to say, hey, that's hurtful. You could say, well, screw you. I don't need to be in a relationship with you then because I'm going to be me. But, or you could say, is this a refinery? Is this something that could actually refine me and make me a better person? So then the question is, okay, so is better even a thing? Or is it just, I'm going to love me exactly where I am? I think that's what I'm hearing is that, okay, yes, we're loved exactly where we are. And you want that person to love you exactly where you are. Good night. You've loved me so much. So if we're, ADD, ADHD, and OCD, and there's something that can help my brain, you put up with that for living with that kind of brain and the hurt that can come with that. But you could also say, hey, Brian, I've heard that there's some good treatment for that. And can I be influenced by you? Are you someone that could actually influence me, or am I just going to double down and stick to my guns because of my self-love? So it's just, I know this is very nuanced, but I want to get into that because I think if we just ignore the nuance, it's going to be all about me. And I love myself. And so I don't need to be in any relationship. Matter of fact, I'm not going to be in a relationship. I'm going to love myself and I'm fine.
And you know what? You can choose that. You can absolutely choose that. There are some people that do. And maybe that is better for some. Yeah. But for those that want to be in an intimate relationship with someone, there is self-love, loving yourself, but then where does dying to yourself come in? Where is that sacrificial love that I'm going to lay down some of my needs to meet your needs? Yeah. I'm going to look to your needs before my own. Where is that humility? I think there's so many different layers coming into
and when
this,
you bring that up, the sacrificial love, I was actually going to stay away from that word, but I'm glad you brought it up. Okay, because I know so many people associate that. They go, that's the problem with Christianity, and you guys are weak. You're allowing yourself, this sacrificial word, that's just allowing yourself to be abused. So I think what I'm wanting to guard against is because I don't want people to stay in abusive relationships. I do want people to have boundaries. I want to recognize if someone's not good for you because they're not willing to change, and they're, if they are, continuing to be abusive, to choose not to be in a relationship with that person. But what I am saying, you can go too far because there is an element of being, quote, abused. And I don't mean that word on anything that's going to be criminal or anything that your therapist would call abuse. I mean, there's just a low grade abuse when you sign up to be in relationship with someone else. And that's what I want to highlight. And some people right now are going to turn this off and they're going to say, well, then I never want to be married. And that's the problem. But marriage is a crucible. Marriage is an anvil. Marriage is a refinery. It is the best, I think, crucible of learning to die to yourself. And so then the question is, can you be happy in that? Is there something beneficial to that? Is there something good about that? Is there something in me that when I'm not, it's not all about me? And I say, how about forget about self-love for a minute. How about love of my partner? And because there's going to come a time where I'm going to go, okay, you know what? I don't love that. And that's causing the little self-love in me to go, but I'm going to forgive that because I want to stay married.
Yeah. And there's, if you look at, I know we're talking about dating or marriage, but if you look at the, parent-child relationship, there is no more sacrificial love than that. You are looking to that infant's need, above your own. And so I think, it's in a lot of different relationships, that sacrificial love. I know I keep bringing that up, and now I'm trying not to say that word.
No, it's I think you can't be in a marriage without it.
I can't think of a better word than when you choose to say, I'm going to lay down some of my needs, or I'm going to lay down some of my wants to love you, or to let you have your way. I think about
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just think about my parents sacrificing a lot to have us 5 kids, and to send us to school. And so that was a sacrifice for them, but one that they did gladly. And I was so thankful for it. And I don't think that it wasn't like I was abusing them because I accepted that sacrifice. It was a beautiful thing they wanted to give me, and I accepted it with gratitude. Yeah. And it was, I think it can bring out something really cool.
Because I believe so strongly in marriage, and we are so happy after 36 years that I don't want the overcorrection and the overcompensation to what has been bad relationships and abuse in relationships. I don't want that overcorrection to cause people to literally have a standard that just doesn't exist and miss out because they're holding out for something because, hey, nope, here's my self-love, here's my boundary, here's my, nope, you're triggering me. And so they're going to miss out. And so then you ask, all right, well, how's it working for you? Well, somehow, I don't think anybody would say, man, Brian doesn't love himself. I don't think anybody would say Jamie doesn't love herself. Like, we have plenty of self-love, but we've just decided that there are certain things that we're going to forgive. We're going to, quote, put up with. We're going to abide. We're going to, and again, we've talked about learning to not just tolerate, but to value the differences and to treasure them. But it's not easy. It is not easy. So anyway, maybe again, you have to listen to the podcast. Like not like they were even making strong statements about this stuff, but it was when I just heard the self-love and the making sure you love yourself, and that causes you maybe to not be in relationships. I mean, you're just going to love yourself above all, and if nobody else can, then screw it. I don't need it. So I get that. I just think a lot of that's coming from a place of overcompensation for either felt abuse or seen abuse, and which is, there's no place for that, right? But the healing that can come when you have, instead of saying, man, I'm going to love myself, and I love it, yes, warts and all, but if there's something that can get rid of those warts, let's do it. And let's give ourselves grace in the meantime, and tons of love and tons of, we're accepting you. That's what I love about you. You've said, man, I love you, warts and all. And your warts are hurting me though. And I hope you take care of them. And I wish you would. And now that I'm listening to you, it's like, yeah, I want to get rid of those warts too. And that doesn't mean I don't love myself. That means those are symptoms of something that's out of alignment, and I want to get those things in alignment so I can be healthy, and loving myself either way.
Part of loving yourself is being able to hear from not everyone. You can't care about everyone's opinion in the world, but I think the people that you've allowed into your closest inner circle. So your spouse or a couple of very close best friends or whatever, your sister that you're close to. I think that's an opportunity when you're close to people and when your heart is open and when they speak truth to you and you speak truth to them. That's part of self-love. You're like, I'm going to continue to grow for the rest of my life. So I want to be open to, if someone has, an idea or a thought or something that they may see, I can't just go, nope. I'm not going to listen to that. And you're out of my life. You're missing an opportunity for growth.
Yes. It's interesting. There is an idea that I hear, and I feel like the idea of like the man that should exist in many cases, I just don't think he exists. And part of that is, I don't think it's, it's toxic masculinity. I think some of that's just masculinity. Oh, he's a narcissist or he's a man. It's so interesting that the bar has been set because of, again, I think abuse and problems, and I just mean problematic behavior because of wounded hurt people, that we've set this bar for men or women, a partner, and for marriage, that okay, now you put it in this unicorn realm. That's this thing that just does not exist. And so that's what I'm wanting to warn, because it's so good when you can get into it with the flawed person, the person who does have the issues, and you do love yourself, but you can allow yourself and your spouse to be refined in the process of this crucible we call marriage. And what's awesome is when it's that deal, the road less traveled and narrow is the way and few find it, because most people, we're drawing the line and we're getting out 5 years in, 2 years in, 7 years in, whenever it is, where you feel like, okay, what I thought I found is not the thing I thought I found. You're not the person for me. And so I'm just going to wall off. And I think that speaks to what's happening there is what's happening in our culture, isolation. We're moving into ourselves. It's all about us. It's all about me, and protection. So, yeah. So none of that is saying don't protect yourself and don't have boundaries, don't have standards. But boy, see, it's so, and again, this is not an expert coming down. It's just a conversation. And I just wanted to, just while I was fresh about thinking about it, I think it's just one of those deals that we have to be real careful that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
That's a great conversation.
Great.
Glad that came out of that podcast for you.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. So what are we going to call this one?
Oh, Bumble.
The Bumble unicorn.
Bumblebee.
Bumblebee. No, it's a cool story. One of the things that she said, I love her story. I love what she thinks about love. I mean, and really love is it. And how, the non-speaker, John Paul, who passed, his deal was, it's all about love. And the way Kai Dixon now, she defines love as anything that unifies. And if you can remember that before making decisions, is this going to divide or is this going to unify? Good. And the other thing she said, the CEO of Bumble, is if you just think, oh, look at that man, he's hot, she's hot, and you swipe and boom, those don't work out. But she said the thing that they see work out is when you share values around family and community. So, and then she said, if you don't know what your values are, like if you can't sit down and write a list of here are my values, and now how would I structure my life in order to prioritize and live according to those values? She said, I couldn't. And I just thought about you and I. I mean, you and I definitely can do that. That's what we talk about. And that list, the older you get, the list is going to get shorter and shorter.
That's
and if
an
you could
interesting exercise.
Yeah. Yep. So if you could live kind of ruthlessly eliminate the, not just hurry, but all the things that aren't on that priority list for your values and just live according to those. Yeah. You'll end up being a very rich man or woman.
Yes. And
okay, babe. Well, thanks for obliging me on short notice. And we'd love to hear from you. As always, remember, we are a nonprofit, so share this podcast. If it's doing good and blessing you, not only share it, but you can jump on our website at longhaulmarriage.org and see our services that we offer. And there's a little donate button. Never hesitate to help us out there.
Never hesitate to donate.
If you feel so inclined, don't hesitate to donate. Nice. And let's see what else. We have some workshops coming up. One in July that's going to be coming up. We're doing Marriage Monday. One of these days, it's going to be a Facebook Live where we can interact with you guys. We're going to have our parenting podcast.
Love to ask a question.
Yeah.
So one thing that we are working on now is also an online parenting workshop.
Oh, yeah.
We would love for you to comment if that's something you want to hear more about. If you want to be a part of that, we'll pass the word on and let you know.
And send us, be looking for our newsletter. It's about to be coming out for this month. But also, we know a lot of people don't comment on podcasts, but reach out to us via email and let us know. Brian at longhaulmarriage.org or Jamie at longhaulmarriage.org. All right. You guys be well and be Bumble.